Mr. Udeet Metala, who will speak on quantified sustainability for modern building aesthetics. Mr. Udeet is founder of Building Energy India. He believes in multi-disciplinary approach of architecture that traverses urban and rural planning, community development, and sustainable habitats. He was also previously working on a city-scale slum redevelopment projects in different parts of India. He has over the last 6 years been training architects in India to use energy modeling tools in the design strategy so as to develop energy efficient and sustainable building designs. So let's welcome Mr. Udeet Metala.
Look at this whole thing a little bit broadly. The world does not have limitless resources as we once believed. And today we are on the brink of the 6th mass extinction. We are approaching this at a very fast pace, more than what was anticipated. And therefore, the idea of sustainability needs to permeate everything that we do. And that's kind of where we begin and kind of take off from when we get into design and designing sustainably. So in architecture and design, it kind of comes into these various broad pockets of hydrogeology, climate responsiveness, passive design strategies. We saw a lot of them from Sachin and Shweta. Building materials, efficiency in energy consuming systems, right? The technologies that we put in, and the relationships between all living things, that is the end users. And that does not just mean humans, but it also means the plants, the animals, the birds, the insects, they all together create this ecosystem that we're talking about, right? So in architecture and design, we're trying to kind of balance all of these different aspects together to create that kind of a habitat for everything to coexist, but also in a way that will last for many, many generations and not in a short-sighted, short-term manner. So how do we do that? So every element in your building, in your environment around you that you create artificially, every element in the building is designed from a usage point of view, and it needs to be part of a sustainable resource cycle. So this resource cycle that we create, right now, we're looking at the resources that we have as infinite. We're looking at a use and throw kind of an approach from our end users, from people who live in these spaces that we design. And so to understand if we can bring about behavior change as well, if we can identify every element in our building, where has it been sourced from, how is it playing its role in this system, and then how is it going to be leaving the system at the end of its life, is where we kind of find a closed loop. We find the cycle for this, for the resources that we are trying to procure and build things with. And we also have resources currently in various parts of the world where there is food, water, and energy. These are the three that are currently in a scarcity mode. And so our sustainable approach to buildings, to design, also needs to take into account how are these different parameters, how are these different factors going to be included when we design? How do we design inclusively for people as well as for all of the rest of the elements in our environment? So when we get into these details, the designer's approach is also changing. The designer's approach is also no more looking at it from an easy procurement of everything from all over. We're not just looking at transport, but we're also looking at, is it sustainable? What is the carbon element to each of these factors in our materials of the building? So the important thing is to quantify, right? If we don't quantify, if we don't measure, then how do we create a reference point to say that what we're doing now is in fact sustainable? When we say efficiency, is it really efficiency, or are we following a rule of thumb? So how do you measure, right? Today, thankfully, we have software, simulation software, tools that are able to create a model of your design, place it in the actual weather condition that it's going to face, and you run those simulations over 365 days, minute to minute. We saw some of those results in Mr. Rastogi's presentation as well, where he's interrogating the building and looking at how much is the temperature change, how much, in fact, is your building improving through your design process, right? So it allows you to go back and correct your change, correct the mistakes, accurately identify where are your low performing areas in the building, and improve your overall building performance without actually building that mistake and then having the world live with it for the next 20, 30, 50 years. And so this has to be the approach that we take up more and more. These equate to also cost savings. So very often, like Shweta mentioned, clients have a problem with sustainability, saying it's going to cost me more. And so it's important to say that over the life of the building, you're actually saving costs. And very often, you're able to bring this into an income. When you have a payback period for a system that is sustainable, it actually becomes equivalent to additional income after you've paid back the additional cost. And so that is somewhere also a language issue of how we convince our clients, how do we bring them to understand what we're talking about, because they're often very technical things that we're talking about. So this is one aspect of the challenge. Technically, how do we solve it? How do we make the building functional on a sustainable level? And then comes the magic of the designer. This is where we have to not only be functional, but also be beautiful. We've got to make the design both. We've got to be able to do sustainable in terms of our energy, in terms of our resources, but also sustainable and beautiful. So the reason we have a range of glass buildings coming up in India is essentially because those are considered beautiful by clients. But this is in fact a climate response that is done for cold weather countries, for cold climates. And for our hot climates, the reason these aren't considered beautiful is because we haven't taken our own climate responses, which have been evolved over generations, to create our modern aesthetics into them, right? So I'm just going to close with a quick video of something that I have designed and is now under construction, in which it'll give you an idea of where aesthetics can meet. So this is one of our constructions where we've used laterite as our building construction material. The entire building is load bearing. This is located in a rural area for organic farmers who believe in the sustainable way of living. The entire space has been constructed to bring in as much of the wind and ventilation and funnel that through the building. The material itself, laterite, is a porous material which ensures that your building facade takes all of the heat without transmitting it to the inner sides of the building. We've created these courtyards, but also used curved lines and curved shapes in the building to bring in a more modern aesthetic to the building. At the same time, there are a lot of green open spaces around, which are actually productive landscapes that will also generate fruits and food for the people living on the site. Yes, so just going to let you take a look at the and that's the overall form of the building. Thank you very much.